All right, all right. Welcome, everyone. Today is a very, very special day. It's something that we've worked on for, I think, close to 11 months now. We had to keep it under wraps because there were so many different moving parts associated with it, and it's really like a radical change forward for IOTA, right? And so this is why we wanted to make sure that everything is ready, the announcement, the release, the testnet, the wallet software, the library, all the tooling. We wanted everything to be ready to finally present it to all of you guys. So here we are. Welcome to IOTA Rebased. And this is really like a very exciting directional change that we're taking with IOTA from something working on IOTA 2.0, which was really sort of like leaderless, fully decentralized, leaderless consensus protocol, right? Trying to maximize decentralization and not focus on programmability, to taking a very different path now with making sure that we maximize programmability and making sure that we maximize utility on the IOTA network. And this is why obviously it's taking a little bit of time to get everything prepared and everything ready. But this is why we're very excited to present this to you guys, to the IOTA community, as a governance decision, right? To make sure that all of you will be empowered to vote what the future of IOTA should be. So what I want to do today is I want to talk a little bit about how it came about in terms of IOTA Rebased, where it came from, how we are actually going to, how we've improved it, right? And how we actually want to take it further from here. And then most importantly, what are the next steps, right? Like what is going to happen next with the governance vote? What is going to happen next once it gets voted in and it comes on the IOTA mainnet? And what do we actually expect to happen with IOTA, right? Because we wouldn't do these things if they weren't difficult. We wouldn't do these things if they weren't radical. And we wouldn't do these things if they wouldn't move IOTA forward, right? And so this is why with IOTA Rebased, we and the entire IOTA team is obviously very excited to take IOTA forward with it. So what I'll do today is I'll talk you guys through some of the thinking behind it, right? Because IOTA Rebased as a project actually started 2 years ago. Let me actually share the screen with you guys. So let's talk about IOTA Rebased, right? And maybe let's talk about why we thought this change was necessary. And I think it's important to understand that where IOTA started in 2015 and where the crypto market is today in 2024, it's radically different, right? Like when we started in 2015, the way that you launched a protocol was on Bitcoin Talk, right? You basically wrote a forum post and you invited people to send you some Bitcoin to a Bitcoin address and to join your forum, to join your whatever server. I think it was Rocket Chat or whatever it was back then. And to join your community, right? It was really like this grassroots movement. And IOTA was one of those grassroots movement projects, because if you think about it, we started IOTA with just raising $500,000 in the ICO. So it's probably one of the projects next to Bitcoin, which obviously raised no capital, that raised the least amount of capital, right, to bootstrap the project and get it off the ground. And other than doing things differently from the launch, we also did things differently, very, very much differently from the technology standpoint, right? We were the ones who actually introduced the DAG protocol for distributed ledger back in 2015. That was the whole genesis behind IOTA. And all along, our core thesis with IOTA has always been to work on real-world adoption, right? We proclaimed and we said that the only way in which blockchains will actually add any value to society is if they get adopted in the real world. If big companies, if governments use it in production and use it for their use cases, use it in their entire industries, right? And so that's why the whole adoption thesis of IOTA was around industrial adoption, right? So in 2017, we founded the IOTA Foundation to really focus on this adoption. And we spearheaded a lot of these use cases, right? So in 2017, we were really at the top of the cycle. And we were one of the leaders back then with everything that we had going for us, right? And obviously, as the market evolved, the adoption cases also evolved. And so it was less about enterprise adoption, it was more about Web3 and crypto-related use cases. And the market also moved away from this sort of like decentralization is everything towards a more pragmatic approach, which is basically sufficient decentralization is fine, but the only thing that really matters is adoption and growth, right? And as the market shifted, also the technologies shifted, right? So it wasn't really anymore about being the most decentralized necessarily. It was really about the one that captured the most mind share. That was at the top of the cycle in a certain period. And that also had unique use cases that nobody else had, right? And so with this changing market, we at the IOTA Foundation, we also understood that what we initially had as our North Star, right, as our guiding star, which was what we called coordicide, the removal of the coordinator and the full decentralization of the protocol. We understood that that wasn't enough, right? And it wasn't just about decentralizing IOTA. It was really about building an entire ecosystem around IOTA, where all of these enterprise use cases that we've been working on in Kenya, in the UK, in the UAE, in Europe, wouldn't just run on a private testnet, but they would actually run on the main IOTA network. And then we actually went beyond that and actually embraced Web3, right? And so we realized 2 years ago that we really needed to make this shift and make a shift in strategy and also make a shift in our technology, because ultimately the only way in which we could move IOTA forward is to have programmability on the ledger, so that you could actually launch smart contracts, deploy your applications, and then with that actually launch your business, right? And so this is why we went on this journey to first integrate the EVM on IOTA, and now with the IOTA rebased, we make the entire ledger, the entire IOTA rebased layer one fully programmable, right? And this is really how we saw a necessary evolution of IOTA and the necessary evolution of our priorities, because decentralization was not enough. We need to have programmability for IOTA to really compete. And this is really why we went on this journey. As I mentioned, the IOTA EVM launched in 2024, in May of this year. And it's been growing rapidly ever since, right? So we have around, I think, 40 or 50 dApps right now, more than 30 million TVL, and it's growing. And some really exciting partners, and right? And this is a very good start from a project that started out as being like an enterprise chain to something that is now starting to embrace Web3. But something else that we really focus on, and what we started 2 years ago, is really this journey on how to bring smart contracts to the layer one. And this is where we initially scoped out the entire ecosystem, right, of what was available out there. And so we quickly came to the conclusion that the Move virtual machine was actually the right path forward for us. Because unlike the EVM, which is obviously very exciting, but had these significant limitations in terms of scalability and also being applicable to our DAC architecture, our team understood that the Move VM, especially the SUI Move VM, right, which have really adapted what was started at Facebook and taken it a different approach by taking many of the same concepts and principles behind IOTA's DAC ledger and then adapting it with their own architecture. And so this is why we really focus on making sure that we have the Move VM on IOTA, leveraging the DAC architecture, right? Because the core thesis of IOTA is to have a parallelized ledger architecture, because that is how we scale the network. We are not here to build layer twos. We're not here to build the roll-ups. We're really here to make sure that everything happens on the IOTA layer one. Similarly to Solana, right? We want to have one ledger, one network, and one token in this entire ecosystem. So our team basically made a very extensive report on the Move VM, and then we started working on a prototype, building out or integrating the Move VM on IOTA, and then from that, starting to understand the requirements that it would actually take to fully integrate the Move VM into IOTA 2.0. And so this is a task force that actually completed end of last year. And our team then quickly came to the realization that it was possible to integrate the Move VM into IOTA 2.0, but there would be significant changes required, right? Effectively changing a large part of the code base effectively changing a large part of the concepts behind IOTA 2.0, right? Mana would have needed to be adapted. There would be obviously fees to be charged in Mana in that regard, and other changes to the protocol. And so earlier this year, we had a summit and we had some discussions with the team where we basically posted the question: do we really want to take another 2 years to adapt the MoveVM to IOTA to have something that everybody else has today, only to then be able to adapt it and improve it and optimize it? Or do we want to make a radical approach? And do we want to fast forward with IOTA so that we don't have to wait for the protocol to be adapted, but so that we take existing protocols that are out there, taking what is there from Sui, taking what is there from Ethereum, taking some of the concepts of Solana, and also taking what we've worked on with IOTA 2.0 and really make it into one protocol so that we can then much more quickly get to the market and can compete, right? Because ultimately, the market that we have today is no longer the one where you post something on Bitcoin Talk and you get attention, you get adoption, right? This is the origin story of IOTA in 2015. This is how we were born. But the way that you compete today is everything. It's about adoption, it's about use cases, and it's about capturing mindshare in the market, right? And so this is why the only thing that really matters to us at this point is not to take our time and to pursue ideals. The only thing that matters to us is to make sure that the technology itself is ready as quickly as possible so that we can then compete on the application layer, right? On the utility layer, really increasing the adoption and the penetration of the IOTA token, making sure that it's being used as a payment mechanism, making sure that it's being used as collateral within the ecosystem, making sure that it really has new forms of utility, new applications that aren't possible on any other network, right? So that is really how we should compete. So we don't compete on ideals. We really compete on a very pragmatic vision of the future, which is to get adoption in the real world, right? And so this is why our team made this decision to build out the IOTA rebase protocol so that we could then actually present it to the community as a decision of what should be the future of IOTA, right? So for us, it's very clear, time to market is everything. And we cannot wait anymore, right? And if you think about it, there's a booming market around us. Think about how terrible it would have been if we had to have to wait even more, right? Now with IOTA rebase, we're actually ready. And what's really exciting, which I'll talk about afterwards in terms of the roadmap, but what's really exciting is that we really have a very competitive protocol right now that can help us accelerate our adoption efforts. And so ultimately, the decision that we have to make as IOTA, as a community, is like, do we want to take the fast path where we integrate the MoveVM, where we have the MoveVM on a new IOTA layer, on a new rebased IOTA layer, or do we want to take the longer path of pursuing ideals and integrating the MoveVM into IOTA 2.0, right? So this is why it was very important for us to release a testnet today so that all of you could actually try out the network, feel what the future of IOTA could be, and then make your own decision. And so this is really a much shorter path to having a very competitive layer one. Something else that's really exciting about this protocol is really the adoption that we're going to see, right? And as I've already told you, we already have the EVM on the layer 2. We're going to continue to have the EVM, right? So even if the IOTA rebase protocol is on the layer 1, our adoption strategy will still be centered around the EVM while building up the Move ecosystem. Now, the thinking behind that is very simple, right? The EVM is a very easy to use ecosystem that is well established. All the tooling is there, all the integrations are there, many of the dApps are open source, and everything is there, right? So the IOTA EVM ecosystem today is fully functional, right? You can trade there, you can leverage there, you can launch your meme coins, you can even do some very exciting gaming use cases, right? So everything is already there. And so now we can already get adoption into the EVM and move that forward so that really making sure that we have a very liquid market on IOTA, on the IOTA EVM, that will then help attract new users, new builders, and also new investors into IOTA. Now, what we want to focus on the move layer is really very unique use cases that are not possible on the EVM today, where you really need to have a very highly optimized, parallelized ledger with a new smart contract language that is safe and that really offers new possibilities to leverage this object-based ledger so that it can really have new asset type applications. So for example, what we are already working on today, and these are some of the use cases that are going to come on the move layer one, is TLIP, right, which is our train logistic project, where we're tracking goods in the supply chain, and we're certifying them and bringing that data fully on chain. And what we're doing with TLIP now actually is we're starting to tokenize invoices. And this is something that I've talked about before, but with these tokenized invoices, you can then really do invoice factoring, right? And so we have a very exciting trade finance application that is currently being built so that farmers in Kenya can be fully funded by tokenizing their invoice through TLIP, right? And so we have some important partners on board there that are then going to provide the funding, right, financial institutions, to fund these farmers, all done fully on-chain on IOTA, right? So those are the really type of unique applications where we bring in real assets on-chain so that IOTA is competitive and so that IOTA is very unique in the market. Another thing that we are really excited to work on, and this is something that the Realize team has started building, is an on-chain order book exchange, right? So imagine you would have the same functionality as Binance, but instead of it being operated as a centralized exchange with all its faults and all its problems, you run it fully decentralized on the IOTA layer one, right? So this is only possible with the new ledger architecture because it's programmable and because it's highly scalable, right? And so this on-chain order book exchange is really something where we can then trade these tokenized assets and also trade other assets in a fully decentralized way. Other things that are being worked on is collateral-backed lending, right? Where you tokenize the assets and then you take out a loan from them. Stablecoins is also something super exciting to work on. And we're already in touch with many of the stablecoin issuers to then potentially start issuing and minting their tokens, their stablecoins on the IOTA layer one, right? For that, they need to have compliance functions. For that, they need to have a very exciting ecosystem to deploy into. And for that, they really need to have good reasons to do that, right? And so what we're doing in trade finance is really something that's very exciting for these stablecoin operators because it really allows us to actually provide this funding and provide this payment mechanism for supply chain traders today, right? And so IOTA Rebased is really a very good new ledger, new layer one for them to start deploying. And other things that will be possible is things like liquid staking, right? Where you can actually take the yield from IOTA staking, make it accessible in new applications and stuff like that, right? So this is really just the beginning. Now, the way that we see this moving forward is that IOTA will be supporting both the Move VM and the EVM. And we really see this interoperability between both, where you will be able to transfer assets between the two networks. And further down the line, where we're also going to work on full composability between the two networks. So with this, we really feel that we have a very competitive package for builders in this ecosystem to come to IOTA and not come to other networks. So this is obviously a continuous effort to onboard builders, but with the Move VM and the EVM, we really believe that builders have a very good development environment to work with. So something else that is important to highlight is really the USPs of this network. So what does it actually look like, right? First of all, the most important part is it's fully decentralized, right? It uses a delegated proof of stake protocol with 150 validators that are going to be selected based on their stake. Now, this is something that we haven't had before, right? Because the IOTA of today uses a permissioned validator set of, I think, 12 validators. Now, this new network is fully decentralized, 150 validators with the highest stake. Now, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to have some very exciting announcements of new professional staking pools and large institutional players that are going to come onto the IOTA network and will begin to validate or will begin to offer the validation service to the network. The way that we're going to see this is that it will be professional staking pools. It will be strategic partners, including governments that we're working with to become validators on the network as well. And it will also be you guys, right? It will be the community that will be encouraged to set up staking pools. And so I think here we can take a lot of inspiration from Cardano, because I think Cardano has done a really, really amazing job in building up these staking pools that are fully community run, right? And where the staking rewards are then being distributed to different causes, right? So really encourage all of you who are sort of technical or who want to do things for IOTA for a certain cause. Imagine you want to run meetups in a certain location, like in Argentina. Set up a staking pool, right? This is really something where through those staking rewards, we can really fund these local initiatives. And so we as the foundation, we're also going to have a dedicated staking delegation program where we're going to support the community with our stake to set up these pools. So now it's the time for you guys to become validators and secure the network. The second thing, which I've already mentioned, is we have the parallelized move VM on the layer 1, and then we have the EVM on the layer 2. This is really something that is meant to help us fast track the adoption of IOTA while building up a very unique ecosystem on the move layer, right? So that we don't have to wait to get, so we don't have to rebuild all the DeFi primitives that are there today on the EVM on the move layer, because quite frankly, that would also be a waste of time and a waste of effort. Instead, on the move layer, we should really focus on unique applications that are not possible on any other network. The third part, which is something very critical and very important, is the staking rewards. We are finally going to have IOTA staking. So as an IOTA holder, I think this has been always something that was kind of weird, like why we didn't have staking since the start. And I think a lot of it had to do with ideology at first, where we thought we didn't need to have staking to secure the network, where we thought we could have different kind of incentives to structure the ledger and structure the network, right? Now, while many of these ideas work in theory and work in principle, what has proven itself in the market is that staking rewards is really one of the best ways to decentralize the network and build up adoption for the token, because it is one of the most profound utilities of the token, right? These networks exist, or these networks are decentralized because the token itself is being used to secure the network, right? This is why these tokens exist in the first place. Unless, of course, you're a meme coin, right? Or like a token with no utility. But the security of the network is the most profound and the most foundational utility of decentralized networks, right? And so finally having staking on IOTA is really a critical part for us to have the same that everybody else has, and for us to really build up this entire staking infrastructure. Think about all of these funds that are existing today, whether it's an ETF or an ETP or a family office, all of them have been asking us about staking rewards in IOTA. Now we can finally tell them how much APY they're going to get, between 10 to 15%, and how they will actually be able to generate a return by securing the network, by running a validator, and by holding their IOTA tokens. So this is really like a critical part that will help us in our adoption of IOTA in the financial sector, right? This has been one of the main exciting things for the Ethereum ETF, by the way, having staking rewards. And this is really why, with staking rewards, we really make IOTA compatible or competitive against other networks, and also give all of you guys who hold the IOTA tokens an incentive to secure the network. The fourth part is fees. Now, this is obviously something that we have really tried to be feeless since forever, right? The USP of IOTA has been to be feeless. This was really our main thesis, our main reason why we have worked on IoT, why we've worked on these micropayment use cases, why we've worked on this machine economy. Now, while all the use cases in this machine economy, or many of the use cases in this machine economy didn't work out, right? Because they were just not feasible, they were too far into the future, or IOTA was too early in many regards. this core principle of IOTA to be feeless was persistent, right? It really guided us in IOTA 2.0. It guided our design in Mana, right? And so I think everybody would love to have a feeless protocol, but there's always a hidden fee, right? So Mana was really a way to hide this. And so there's two ways to look at this, right? If you stake your IOTA tokens today, through the inflation, you actually get enough tokens to pay the fees, right? The same concept was there with IOTA with Mana, because you effectively stake your IOTA tokens to earn Mana to then pay the fees with that. The only difference is that with the staking rewards on IOTA now, IOTA becomes inflationary, right? The way that we're going to balance this is that the fees that are being paid are going to be burned, right? So this is a concept that was started in Ethereum, in Solana. So we're going to have fee burning so that with the adoption that is happening on the layer one, IOTA will eventually become deflationary, right? So all this inflationary increase that is happening through the staking rewards will then be counterbalanced by making it completely, by completely burning the fees. This is really something that really encourages us and everybody in the network to really push for the adoption on the mainnet. And now the last point, and obviously one of the most important ones, is that the new ledger is really scalable, right? It is fully parallelized. It's a DAG ledger. And I think some of our tests showed that we can do more than 50,000 TPS. Obviously, now that we have this new protocol in place, the focus is on really on how to scale this even more. And we can also have sub-second finality times, right? Around 400 to 500 milliseconds to confirm transactions. That's obviously incredibly exciting because now we have a very scalable ledger with programmability and fast transactions. And so all in all, I think this entire package really repositions IOTA in the market and introduces a new protocol and also a new path forward for IOTA to accelerate our adoption and for all of you to really be part of this journey of IOTA and be excited for IOTA and the way that we're moving forward. By the way, we have to give a lot of credit to the design team because this is really one of the most beautiful images that actually explains to you why IOTA rebased was so critical for us, right? Instead of having to wait another 2 years for the protocol to get ready, instead of undergoing effectively 2 mainnet upgrades, first with IOTA 2.0 and then with the IOTA Move ledger, we can now do 1 mainnet upgrade and we can really accelerate our adoption through that. We have all of this adoption that we've been working on over the past few years that we can now bring on-chain. We don't need to wait another 2 years, but we can really make it happen as quickly as possible. As with IOTA rebased, we really leapfrog, right? As the memes started in the community, with IOTA rebased, we can finally leapfrog IOTA. And I think that's something that we can really be excited about because now we can be competitive in 2024 and be ready for hopefully an even more exciting market over the coming months. Maybe just to talk a little bit about the timeline. So first of all, what's going to happen right now is that we have a governance vote, right? So this is something where we really encourage all of you to participate and to vote and to tell us your opinion. Like, do you want to do IOTA rebased or do you not support IOTA rebased? We're undergoing through this governance phase right now, first on the forum, and then it will be a token vote. It will take around, I think, 4 or 5 weeks, 5 weeks in total, until the votes are final and until the community will have decided about IOTA rebased. So after the vote was completed, we obviously still have to continue the testnet phase. So starting from today, there's a 2-month testnet phase to really make sure that everything is fine, that all of our partners are actually ready for the mainnet release, right? The validators, the staking pools, and also the integrations with the exchanges. And so this 2 months time frame right now gives us enough time to battle test the protocol, to make sure that everything is ready and we have a full green light by our engineering team to ship it to mainnet, right? So this readiness is really critical. As I've already mentioned, the other critical component is the exchange integrations. So we've already engaged with all of them pretty much, and they've all been supportive of the IOTA rebased upgrade. But now, obviously, they need to start the integration. And so this is something where we're going to assist them and support them to make sure that we're able to do this in time. But by and large, instead of waiting 2 years, we are now able to launch IOTA rebase on the IOTA mainnet sometime in early 2025, right? And 2025 is pretty much around the corner. So I think we are at the really exciting stage right now where we are fundamentally transforming IOTA, where we're pushing it into the future, where we are leveraging all of these assets that we've built over the last few years around the real-world adoption of IOTA, around the positioning of IOTA, right? You have to understand, IOTA has been in the market for 9 years. So we're one of the oldest layer ones that many people in the market know. But now we finally have the right tech in place. We have an asset, the IOTA token, that generates yield. And we have an entire ecosystem that is being built on top of IOTA, on the EVM, on the Move VM, to really make IOTA a very unique playing field. So I think this is really a very exciting mix to go into the new year and to start 2025 with a different mindset. Not trying to catch up with the competition, but trying to get ahead of them, right? Because that's all that matters right now. And I personally, the only thing that I care about right now is to get adoption to the IOTA mainnet, or to make sure that we maximize the utility for IOTA and increase the adoption and the growth of our ecosystem. Because that's really how we can succeed in this market. So as I already mentioned with this release, there's a testnet as well, so that all of you can play around with it. Please follow the instructions here. Make sure to join us on Discord if you haven't already. You can engage with our amazing team there. You can ask any kind of questions you want. We will be happy to answer them. If you're new to IOTA, welcome again. We are here to make you love us again, for sure. And make sure to try out the network, right? There's also a testnet, there's also a wallet, and there's also a very good explorer to watch it all unfold live. What we're going to do is we're going to have a more technical show probably on Friday. We're still finalizing the time with the team, but we'll do it together with the engineering leads to guide us through IOTA rebased, why they're so excited about the new protocol, the kind of use cases that they want to see, and also how they want to relive or recreate some of the ideas behind IOTA 2.0 in the IOTA rebased protocol. Next week, we're going to do an AMA, so make sure to collect all your questions that haven't been answered already, so that I will answer them on Twitter Spaces. And over the next couple of weeks, we're going to announce our new partners, the staking pools, the entities that are supporting us on this journey, and also some new players that are going to build on the ecosystem. So by and large, this is the start of a new era, right? And I'm really excited to be in this path with all of you. And I'm really excited to finally move things faster with IOTA and finally able to leapfrog. And with that, I hope that all of you will be able to enjoy the testnet. I hope you will all have a lot of fun there. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Discord, and see you guys soon. Thank you.